Welcome to a very different kind of video. Today we're going to be testing a whole bunch of different canvases. Of course you know that because you clicked on the video, so I assume you're interested in that. Before we jump into it though, I need to go over just a few, actually got a list, a few things that I need to kind of get out of the way before we do these tests so that we're all kind of on the same page. Now obviously there's a lot more different brands of canvases and stuff, but I tried to cap it off at around $20. I didn't want to spend more than that on a canvas, and I've still missed canvases, I'm sure. I did a lot of searching. I tried to find the most, as many as I could find. There was quite a few on Amazon that I felt like looked like the same canvas listed over and over and over again, so I didn't even bother with any of that. But I went to all your big art stores and then your big art stores online, and I got all the canvases I could, that met a certain criteria. The other criteria is it could not be a gallery wrapped canvas, so it couldn't be thick. It had to be thin. I don't like the thick gallery wrap canvases. As a rule, it's okay if you do. I also did not test any canvas brand that didn't go up to at least size 18 by 24. There were a couple of brands that I could have gotten in 16 by 20, but they don't go up to 18 by 24. I said, nope, because I'm not painting on 16 by 20. I paint on 18 by 24, so it's kind of irrelevant to me. Now we need to talk about sponsorships. I'm not sponsored by any of these canvas brands, and I'm not getting paid. I'm not even getting free canvases from anybody. I do my best to keep the test consistent. I repeat the same test on every canvas. I use the same amount of paint as much as I possibly can, and I use clean brushes for each step. And what that does is it keeps things very consistent, which is a good test. If you'd like to see more tests and you'd like to suggest future videos like this, you're curious about, definitely leave a comment in the comments down below. There's really three main things that we're going to be looking at, which is tightness, texture, and the gesso grab. It's kind of hard to explain. Just so you know, gessos typically have gypsum in it, which is the same stuff as in your drywall. You can search this out. You can actually search, what is gesso made? Gesso is originally animal skin glue. Obviously, it's not animal skin glue, although you can actually still get it. In modern gesso, it's got gypsum in it, or at least it should. And the gypsum helps it to grab hold of the paint. If you've ever done drywall work, you know how that stuff just makes your hands all chalky and dry? Helps to suck the paint in and hold it. So gypsum is a good thing. We're going to be looking to see how much our canvases grab the pigment, how rough or how fine the texture is, and how springy the canvas is. And I do my best to kind of keep my opinions out of this video and just let you kind of see and you decide what you think is important to you. Sometimes canvases come with those little wedges, those little spreaders. I don't know what they're called. I don't even know anybody that uses them. You know what I mean? And you pound them in corners and they stretch the canvas a little bit tighter. If the canvas comes with those, I use them. If they don't come with them, I don't go get more just to, you know what I mean? Because the holes are always there. Sometimes they come with the little wooden spacers and sometimes they don't. So if they have them, I'll use them, because it's not fair to complain about the tightness of a canvas if they provided you with those tighteners and you didn't use the tighteners. So that's the reason why. All right, I actually think that's everything on my list. So let's jump into the first canvas. Here's just a quick look at some of the canvases, not all of them. Of course, some of those come in packs of 2 and 3, so I only tested one, obviously, out of the pack. The first one up here in the test is Joe's Prime Really Good Canvas, 18 by 24. I read that slowly because I had to tilt my head to read it sideways. I'll turn all the logos and put them on the screen throughout the entirety of the canvas so you know which one it is. Here's the back. You can see that it comes with the little wedges, and so like we talked about, I will add the wedges in. Here's just the corner of the canvas detailed so you can see the texture of the canvas. Just a close-up there. And, it's got a decent enough tooth to it. I think pretty much all these canvases claim to be medium tooth, but it's so irrelevant. It's not standardized. It might as well be called, anything. It doesn't matter. There's no standard to it. So anyway, I'm going to take my clear gel in white, and I'm going to paint in our first sky. Obviously, I'm going to be doing this over and over and over again. And every time I do, I'm going to be very, very consistent. And you can see I've even got separate brushes for each step. Each step has got a separate brush, and that keeps things very consistent. My amount of paint is not going to change. My color's not going to change. It's going to all be the same. I'm going to take some of my Prussian blue and white. No red or anything. It's literally just blue and white, just to keep things super consistent. Super consistent. And we're not looking for anything other than the springiness of the canvas, the tightness of the canvas, the texture of the gesso, whether or not it's got a lot of gypsum in it and it has a tendency to suck up the paint, or whether it kind of rejects the paint just sits on top. And then we're also looking for texture, the actual physical grain of the canvas, because that's another way that it can hold on to the paint. Because as you do wet on wet painting, you really, in my opinion, you want a canvas that grabs hold of the paint. That's the most desirable feature in a canvas, is that it holds my paint. Because of things like this. I'm going to take a shop towel. This is the best part of the test here. Oh, and I'll just test for springiness as well. You can kind of see that it's far from scientific, but it gives you an idea. Now here you can see this is the most important part of the test. I'm going to start at the bottom of each sky and wipe upward with a shop towel. I'm going to use the same amount of pressure for each one. And I'm going to get that sky to the right where I normally would, you know, which is, you can easily see the grain of the canvas now. And you can see how much of that paint was stained onto the canvas, because this is going to be dramatically different for each canvas. So there you can see that's how much paint remained on the canvas after I wiped it off. That's how much that the texture of that gesso grabbed hold of the pigment of the paint. So here you can see I'm going to paint a cloud in. And you can see how well that cloud sticks or how well it doesn't stick based on this test. I'm just using a filbert brush and nothing but titanium white. It's just titanium white. And, you know, my cloud, it's art, it's not science. We're trying to do something scientific with art. It's kind of a weird mashup, but it is a good test. And I learned quite a bit from this test. My opinions are just that, they're my opinions. The idea of showing you these tests is so you can make your own opinion, and you know, you don't need mine. I certainly learned a lot by doing these tests, so hopefully you learn a lot by watching this video, and you can save yourself some hassle and some money and some time by choosing the canvas that you feel like is going to fit your painting the best. Here you can see I'm going to do this consistently to all the paintings. I'm just giving it a quick soft blend. So there's the result. You know, did you like how well the canvas held the paint, or what do you think? I personally really was surprised in a good way. In just my opinion, that cheap Joe canvas worked way better than I thought it would, based on the name, honestly, which, you know, doesn't mean anything, but it's just funny, you know, marketing, right? Cheap Joe, and it ended up being okay, really quite okay. The next one is from US Art Supply. Never heard of this brand before until I started doing my searches. Here you can see the canvas texture. And here you can see the back of the canvas with the stretcher bar. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not the stretcher bar causes any obvious markings on the front. And I know there's some people that they say, oh, you could put a piece of cardboard behind your painting, you know, in between. But you know what? I've found it doesn't help me at all, because I just get the edges of the cardboard texture elsewhere. So you mean it's like you move the problem more toward the edge of the painting, but it's still a problem. I have never had luck trying to put cardboard behind the stretcher bar, but if you can get it to work, that's great. You know, I'm just saying that I haven't personally. So here you can see whether or not the stretcher bar makes a big enough difference. You know, that would it cause you alarm? Would you not want to paint on a canvas that had a stretcher bar down the middle? You could always drop the size down, and then you probably wouldn't get the stretcher bar. But what if you don't want to drop the size down? If you want to paint on an 18 by 24, which I do, I'm not going to change my size just because some companies put a stretcher bar in it. You know what I mean? And so anyway, so is a stretcher bar make or break it for you? Be interesting to see throughout this test and the other tests, because honestly, a lot of these canvases have stretcher bars. And the reason they do that is because they're using thin wood around the outside. If they beef up the wood around the outside perimeter, they don't need the stretcher bar. The stretcher bar is to keep that canvas from closing or pulling together when they stretch the canvas across it. When they stretch the canvas and they add tension, because their perimeter is so weak, it just sags. Oh, here you can see. Do you like the way that gesso holds the paint? You can see the difference there. I'm almost back to white canvas. I have had people comment in the past, they say, there's something wrong. You know, when I paint, it doesn't work like yours. I wipe with a shop towel and I go back to white canvas. Well, here you're seeing exactly where that problem comes from. It has got to do with the canvas itself. And there you can see, in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion. Oh, there you can see the stretchiness. Quite a bit floppier than the previous one, actually. In my opinion, the stretcher bar on this canvas renders it useless for wet-on-wet painting, in my opinion. Never mind the gesso. And the gesso has varying degrees of gypsum in it. And the more gypsum, the more it tends to hold the pigment. Here you can see that cloud, how well it does or doesn't stick. Actually, it sticks pretty good, doesn't it? Given all of that, it sticks pretty good. And that is because we wiped the canvas. Without wiping the canvas, you have a muddy cloud, just kind of a blue cloud on a blue sky. You guys have probably had that experience. So that's why wiping the canvas is so important. And that's why the gesso is so important, because we do so much wiping of the canvas in the technique that I teach. And I'm going to take that blender brush, and I'm wiping the brushes off well in between each painting. Keep everything consistent. So there you can see our finished product. The next one is the Liquitex Basic Canvas. It comes in a pack of 3. And here's the back of the canvas. You can see the stretcher bar and the stapling along the back of the canvas there. And again, if it comes with spacers, I'll add them in. If it doesn't come with the spacers, I won't go get any spacers. This particular one, when I took off the label, you can see did have spacers, so I will put the spacers in. And again, I'll be consistent. There they are after I hammered them in. And I'll be consistent. If they come with them, I'll use them. If they don't, I won't, because that's the only way that makes sense to do it. It wouldn't be fair to complain about the tightness of a canvas if they came with spacers and I did not use the spacers. The wedges, you know, the things that separate. Anyway, there you go. And so here you can see, as I put my hand on the canvas, you can see the stretcher bar. You can kind of make a determination, is that any different than the one before it? Now you can see I'm going to do the same clear gel and white, just to underpaint the canvas here. Get it ready to go for the next. And, you know, it's a little bit of a repetitive video, but that's okay. I mean, it's a scientific test, not necessarily even entertainment. I want to learn here. I want to learn how important is the surface. I mean, I know how important the surface is, but how important is it to get, like, to stick with a canvas that you like, or maybe like in other words, when I hear people say, oh, I just run down to the art store and I get whatever's the cheapest, how is that really affecting the way that you paint? I think is how we're going to, and what are the options? And just because they're cheap doesn't mean they're bad, and just because they're expensive doesn't mean they're good. Not that I bought any really, really expensive ones in here, because that's kind of impractical. Nobody's painting our kind of paintings on a super expensive canvas most of the time. I've done it, but oh, there you go. As you can see, I'm wiping off this canvas. You can see how well or how not well it sticks. You can kind of make a choice. Is that an acceptable level of stickage or not? And as I'm removing paint, it doesn't really matter how much paint I start with, because I remove it down to the same level, because I kind of know how much paint I leave on the canvas before I start my sky. You know what I mean? I put it on, then I wipe it off. I know how much I want to have on that canvas, so I keep it consistent. So whether or not I put on more amount of paint doesn't actually matter, because at the end of the day, the only amount of paint that's left is what the canvas is holding after I wipe it all away. So here you can see I put my cloud on. The cloud sticks well because I did wipe that canvas. And, you know, spoiler alert, the clouds actually were very similar, if not identical, feeling to paint. It'll be interesting as I rewatch this video, as I do this voiceover, if I notice a difference in my clouds, other than just art is always a little different. And I think that has to do with because I was diligent to wipe the canvas off. So it's more of a question of how well does that canvas hold the paint, and how well stretched is that canvas. And then does that stretcher bar, is that a no-go? Does a stretcher bar just mean automatically the canvas is useless for wet over wet oil painting? I think so. It's my opinion. I think so. It's really, it presents a challenge that doesn't need to be there. Like why am I doing that? If I'm learning to paint, I would rather paint on a 16 by 20, and I don't even like 16 by 20. I'd rather paint on a 16 by 20 than an 18 by 24 with a line down the middle. And this one you can see though, to be fair, the line was way less noticeable on this brand. Okay, Artist Loft Value Pack. This will be interesting. This is one that I know a lot of people use. We'll see how it works next to the others. Here you can see as I press on the canvas, you can see it gives you a basic idea of how tight that is. And as you're pressing on it quite firmly with a 2-inch brush as you do your sky. And here's a close-up of the texture of the canvas. Now we're going to go ahead and just do the same test. Pretty much straightforward, isn't it? Just a little bit of our clear gel and white covering the canvas. Nothing too crazy. Just trying to keep it consistent. Again, trying my very best to use the same amount of clear gel and white. Not that it really, again, matters, because whether you put on a very little bit of paint or you put on a truckload of paint, you're wiping it all off anyways. So I don't know that it really matters, but I was super, super careful because as far as I know, nobody's ever made a video like this. Certainly not in the wet into wet, a la prima, or whatever you want to call us, group of artists. Nobody's done a test like this extensively. So I wanted to do it right because I didn't want to have to do it again. This was quite expensive actually to buy all these, because some of them I just had to buy a canvas and I paid for shipping, and it just kind of all adds up. But here you go. You can see I'm blocking in the sky again using those overlapping strokes. Again, just Prussian blue. We don't need anything else. And the most exciting part is wiping the canvas. It's important to start at the bottom when you wipe your canvases so that you don't drag that dark color down into the light. That's important. Let's see, flip it over. Or just get a clean one, doesn't matter. You can see I'm continuing here to blend with that shop towel, or blend. Yeah, it does blend, but actually, I mean, remove that paint. You can see now the stretcher bar becoming a problem again. And then I'm going to take that 2-inch brush and blend out the brush strokes. Seeing if I can take that stretcher bar line out, which I did somewhat. It's definitely better than it was. I'm not sure if that's bad enough not to use that canvas. It's up to you. Just apparently, it looks like to my eyes at least, it looks like this canvas held the pigment better than a couple of the canvases that we saw a minute ago. This is looking like it's holding the pigment better. In other words, my blue areas are darker at the bottom. The top I'm not as worried about. It's the bottom area where it's that blue and white that really tends to lighten up. But here I can see a little more pigment. That's good. The clouds are sticking well because I wiped the canvas. And here you can see I'm just blending away any of those brush strokes. Just kind of make it look consistent. And see how well that holds the paint. Now I've got an Artist Loft level 1. This comes in a single pack, and I believe these are different from the double pack. The packaging's a little different. I think they're different canvases. They looked like they were different online, so I bought them when I bought them online. We'll see. Here's the back of the canvas. You can see the way that it's stapled around the back there. And here's a close-up of that texture on the canvas. And we're going to repeat using the same process of our test. Oh, there, almost forgot to poke the canvas, just kind of get an idea on the how stretched it is, or is it? How floppy it is. Some canvases are straight up floppy. Oh no. Again, if it had spacers, I put them in. I don't remember if this one had spacers or not, but doesn't really matter. If I know I don't show putting the spacers in, but it doesn't matter. If they come with them, I put them in. And if you like the results and you're like, I want that canvas, well, it'll come with them if it does. So you can expect the same results as long as you're putting in the included spacers. So here you can see the blue and well, it's a dark blue and white mix. Then I go to a light blue and white mix, overlapping strokes to create that beautiful background sky. I sound like I'm teaching art. This is a test. I can't help it. Oh no. Add a little bit more there to the bottom of the sky. Blend it up. And just get it fairly even. I'm going to take that same shop towel method and go right here to the bottom and begin to wipe this whole area off. And let's see how well this sticks. Okay. It's definitely a different canvas from the previous one. These are not the same canvases, even though they are very similar in the name. This would be technically the nicer canvas, quote, nicer canvas, the more expensive canvas, because you're getting it in a single pack versus the double pack. This is like, so they have the basic and then the 2-pack we had, and then then level 1, 2, and 3. And as you get into levels 2 and 3, I believe they become gallery wrapped. And that's why I didn't get them, I think. Here you can see I'm painting in the rest of that cloud. And it just creates that, a nice cloudy shape there by scrubbing in with the filbert brush. And it sticks pretty well. Sometimes I do a little wispy, sometimes I don't. It doesn't matter. I just want to see how well that paint sticks. Not bad. Nice bright white cloud, really. Of course, it may have to do with how little blue is left there at the bottom. Yeah. But like I said, the clouds are overall extremely similar. I feel like painting the clouds felt the same on every canvas. It's the wiping of the canvas and the tension of the canvas that made the biggest difference. There you go. You can kind of get a feel for how that canvas might function in a painting. You'll see that stretcher bar didn't give me much trouble. Oh, here's level 2. I was just saying about level 2. So this should be better. This is more expensive. Should be a higher quality. But you know what? Higher quality doesn't mean better for wet on wet painting. It just means higher quality materials. So, that's another good reason to do this test. I mean, the least expensive canvas may be the best. It's just you don't know till you test it out. And here's the back. You can see how much fancier it is along the back. Although, unfortunately, we've got that dreaded center bar. And here's a close-up of the texture of the canvas. You can see the weave of the canvas there. And here you can see how tight it is. It appears to be a little tighter than the last one, just from me looking at this. And we'll continue on our same test, really. Here's our blue and white going in the same way every time. It was pretty easy to keep everything organized because I've just used a different brush for every step. Made it so much easier. I think that's about the only way to do this kind of a test, really. Here's some white. The white and blue going in the bottom. That just creates a nice atmosphere, you know, with a nice light horizon line. This is what you would normally do for a painting. Now we'll wipe that off with a shop towel as well. You can get a feel for how that paint adheres. It's always important to be constantly either getting a new shop towel or flipping it around to find a clean spot. Because the goal is not to paint. The goal is to remove paint. You don't want to pick up paint and spread it. You want to take it off. And you know what? More expensive doesn't always mean that it holds the paint better. So I've still got too much paint at the top, so I've got to keep wiping. So yeah, because I want it to be consistent. I want the same amount of paint on the canvas, whether or not it floats off, you know, whether or not I pull it all off or some of the pigment, because it's not actually the paint, it's just the pigment that's like staining the canvas. Whatever the canvas can hold after I've wiped as much off as I possibly can. The goal is always to wipe as much off as you possibly can. And what's left is what won't come off. That's what I'm testing, is what won't come off, no matter how much you rubbed it. And so on this canvas, even though it's a much better build quality, you can see the gesso just, in my opinion, didn't grab hold of that paint pigment as good as even the cheap ones, which is good to know. Good to know. I'm gonna give it a quick blend again. Creates nice soft edges because it gives you a feeling for the finished cloud. And I understand that my clouds are a little different in each one, but that's not the canvas. That's just because I'm painting clouds over and over again. Never going to be the same. Okay, the next one we've got Master's Touch Classic Collection. This is Hobby Lobby. Here's the back. You can see the construction of it. And then here's a close-up of the texture of that particular canvas. And we'll repeat the same steps. Now, I do want to say this. In Hobby Lobby, I could not find... oh, here's the tension. You can see how much tension that canvas has. I could not find a super value pack 18x24. They don't seem to carry them. They stopped at 16x20, and it's interesting, but they did, so I'm not going to get a 16x20. It wouldn't be fair because it wouldn't have a stretcher bar. So, anyway. You can see we're just going to repeat the same steps. We'll see how this one turns out. Really, you don't need me giving you much commentary. This is more just to, take a look and see. make your own judgment. I'm not going to bother putting prices on any of this because that's subject to change. And you might catch them on a sale or something, so you never know. Prices, you can just figure it out. They're just underneath that price cap that I set because it's silly to be testing a $85 Paris canvas, which are nice canvases. It would be silly to be testing that against. We're not going to be using a canvas like that for this kind of. That's for portraits, you know what I mean? It's not for wet over wet painting. You can get a pretty good sense of how that canvas holds the paint or not, depending on how you think there. It's not bad. I think it's not bad. I think as you get into some of these slightly more high-end canvases, I think their weave becomes a little bit finer. Even though they all say medium. They either say nothing or they say medium. But again, that's totally relative and means nothing. Just like brush sizes. Did you know that brush sizes are not standardized? So my number 4 is going to be different than your number 4. It's not standardized at all. And so it's pretty irrelevant. I also, every time I try to paint a double layer cloud, it just gives you a feel for how that paint is going to stick after you've built up a little bit of layering to it. How that canvas is going to hold the paint. A canvas is a lot like tires are on your car. You know, they're what contacts the road. They're important. You know what I mean? It's the same idea with a canvas. It's what you're going to be contacting the entire time with your paint. And the traction matters on a canvas like it does on a tire. It's very interesting. Okay, the next canvas here is a Sunbelt canvas, and they don't come with any kind of label or anything. They just come in a box. They come in a little shrink wrap now. They didn't even used to do that. You can see the construction and design of it. You can see the close-up of the weave of the canvas. Now, if you're new here or if you're tuning in just to watch this video, Sunbelt is the canvas that I have used for years and years and years and years. And I'm very happy with Sunbelt. Here you can see the tension of the canvas. I have them stretched extra tight, and they'll do the same for you without any extra cost. You just tell them you want them extra tight like Kevin has his stretched, and they'll do it for you. And here you can see I'm applying the same clear gel and white. And this, of course, has no stretcher bar. And the reason it has no stretcher bar is because the thickness of the perimeter wood is it's wider. Not the thickness, but it's wider. You know, because they're only, these canvases are like 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch thick, because I don't like gallery wrapped. I don't like anything. And an inch wide is way too wide. So I like them like, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch wide at the most. So what I'm talking about is actually the width of you saw the perimeter, the width of the perimeter, not the actual height of the depth of the canvas. You know what I mean? So because they use more wood, in other words, they're using more wood, more material around the perimeter, they don't need that central brace, which I very much appreciate. Here you can see that color going in, the blue and white, mixing it together there. The dark blue at the top, light blue at the bottom. And so you'll be able to see firsthand, are the Sunbelt canvases really that much better? Are they any better? It'd be interesting to see. I don't get paid anything to promote Sunbelt, and I really don't promote them other than just telling you it's what I use. Here you can see I'm wiping the canvas. It's important to flip that shop towel over, get a clean surface. Otherwise you're painting and not removing. You be the judge here. Did that hold paint better than some of them? Certainly better than some of them. Did it hold it better than all of them? Not necessarily. Maybe. I have to kind of go back and you almost have to go through this video again. There you go. Hopefully this information is useful to you. It gives you a good idea of what to expect. Oh, not having a bar down the middle is just night and day difference. And here I'm going to go ahead and paint my standard clouds. And you can get an idea for how that would work. It is funny how you get used to one thing though, because I remember putting the Sunbelt up there and I started painting and I'm like, oh, this feels normal. You know, it is funny the way you can get used to it. It's not better, it just feels normal. It just feels normal. I'm going to do the same blending. A few crisscross strokes, a little bit of fluffing, just to kind of soften it out, make it normal, just like you would any sky. The next one is ArtSmith, and this is a level A. And here's the back of the canvas. You can see the beloved stretcher bar going right down the middle of where my beautiful sky should normally be. Oh dear. If I had to do this video again, I would most definitely make a no stretcher bar rule. Here's the weave of the canvas, a close-up. And here you can see the tension of the canvas, how tight it is. It's really too early to tell whether or not this canvas is going to hold the paint or kind of reject it. But we'll know here in a second. The stretcher bar, it's bad, but it's not as bad as some of them. All right, here we go. Let's see how well this canvas wants to hold that paint. It's important to take off as much paint as you possibly can in order for your clouds to be white. If you skip this step, you're going to have just light blue clouds, and that's one of the biggest frustrations when people first try wet over wet oil painting, is they try to paint white fluffy clouds and all they get are kind of blue clouds. This is how you can solve that problem. I think after wiping that canvas, that stretcher bar really became more evident, and it definitely is apparent, isn't it? Whether or not that's a deal breaker, that's something you'll have to decide, but it's actually went from being not too bad to maybe one of the more apparent stretcher bars that we've looked at this whole lineup. The cloud's going on very nicely, though. It's very pretty. Good fluffy white highlights. And just as a reminder, I am keeping the brushes quite clean by really diligently wiping them in between each canvas. Just keep the test consistent. There's the finished result. All right, Practica 2-pack extra value. So we'll see how this works. Here you can see the back of the canvas, the construction quality, and also the amount of wood that it has there. You can see the corner of the canvas here, the texture and the tightness. It did not come with the little wedges. And here you can see overall tension of the canvas as I press on it. And I was actually quite surprised by the floppiness of it. But we're going to give it a test, and we'll see how it works. This really reveals not only the springiness or the tightness of the canvas, it also reveals just how well that gesso holds the paint, the pigment itself. Paint we're removing, it's that leftover stain on the canvas that I'm looking for. Not bad overall, really. Not bad at all. I think that the stretcher bar looked worse in quite a few of the other canvases. Although you can definitely see it, it's pretty distracting. These stretcher bar down the middle canvases are just, I don't think they're made for wet over wet oil painting. I just don't see how the two just don't seem to go together. And we're going to go ahead and give it the same quick blend, and so we can see how that works out and see how it holds paint during that step as well. But the clouds themselves overall look pretty good. There wasn't any cloud in this whole test where I thought, oh, it just ruined the cloud. Honestly, just some of the skies are lighter and some of the skies are darker. The next one is Creative Inspirations Stretched Canvas 5-pack Super Value. Here you can see the back of the canvas with the stretcher bar. I see the stretcher bar less so far. It'll be interesting to see if that continues. Sometimes the stretcher bars are recessed a little bit. In other words, they're not too close to the actual canvas, and sometimes they're virtually touching the canvas on the back. So that's also a design thing that would make a difference whether or not you see that stretcher bar when you're painting. Of course, obviously, the tightness of the canvas makes a big difference too. We'll go ahead and wipe this off. We'll get a good look at how well it holds the paint. Let's see that. Let's look for the stretcher bar. So far, it's been surprisingly faint. Continue to wipe up here with a fresh shop towel. Make sure we get off as much of that pigment as we can. And then give it a blend. And you know what? That is the best stretcher bar so far, in my opinion. What do you guys think? You can go back and look at them. I think that is almost not even visible, which is kind of surprising, isn't it? And finally, we'll just give it a quick blend so you can see the effects of the blending. Of course, you could use a blender brush. I just did the 2-inch brush on this test. It doesn't really matter. Blend with a 2-inch brush for something like this is more than sufficient. In my opinion, I'm actually quite impressed with the fact that the stretcher bar doesn't show through very much. Now the next one is from Strathmore. It's a 18 by 24 like everything else. It's got no stretcher bar going down the middle, and it does have the little tensioner spacer thing. So I did put those in before doing the test. No stretcher bar. It's awesome. Here's the close-up there. And you can see that the spring of the canvas, of course, remember I have the tensioners in. So if you don't put the tensioners in, it's going to be more floppy. Just so you know. But they include them, so that's no problem. Now the most important part, we're going to wipe the canvas. Of course, we don't have that horrible stretcher bar to contend with, so it's just a matter of, do you like the way that that gesso and the texture are holding onto the paint, or is too much of it coming off? It's just perfect. It's art. It's a personal preference thing. It's not anything more than that. Then I'm going to give it a quick blend just to make sure that the brush strokes are taken care of and that it looks nice and smooth. And we'll paint our same cloud in. I did change to a 1-inch. You saw I was blending with the 1-inch brush just because this is a different day, and I just happened to grab a 1-inch instead of a 2-inch, and it doesn't make any difference. It's all the same. Now this is a very nice canvas. There's nothing wrong with the canvas at all. As you can see, it's working quite well, and it may be one that you want to use. I will just say it's hard to tell in the video, so I just wanted to make a mention of this. I feel like that the texture was more of a fine texture than it was a medium texture. And so just make a note of that. If you like your canvases a little more fine-tooth, I think this would be a pretty good choice. The next one is Art Alternatives Canvas that comes in a 2-pack. There's no stretcher bar down the middle. Yay! That's a victory in itself. Here you can see. Oh, there we go. I'm testing it by poking it. You can see how tight or how loose it is by doing that. Pretty interesting, actually. You see that the fingerprints are still there. That's just me. That's just me feeling the canvas texture for my own curiosity there. Here you can see I'm just doing my basic sky background again. You can see though my fingerprints are still there, right in the middle of the canvas where I was pushing on it. They're still there. This did not come with spacers. If it would have, I would have put them in. I've never searched for them, but I imagine you could buy spacers separately on Amazon or somewhere like that if you were interested in stretching, because they always, I think, have the little places to put the spacers. I'm going to wipe the canvas and see how well it retains the paint. Testing the springiness. Plus, you can really tell you've got your paint wiped off if you can touch it like I just did, and you get no fingerprint in the paint. Then you know you've got a background that's going to accept your clouds without becoming muddy blue, dark blue clouds when you're trying to get white clouds. I would say overall, this canvas certainly functioned fine for getting, we've got a sky on it. It did its job. And, there's no stretcher bar to contend with, so that's great. But would you be satisfied with the tightness of it? Let me know in the comments. I'd like to know what you think. The next one is Blick Premiere. I think this is just a single canvas, or maybe a two. I can't tell. Is that a 2-pack? Anyway, it does come with its with the stretchers, which I put in the little spacers. You can see we've got no stretcher bar to contend with. Yay! Adding that little bit of dark to the top doesn't change the test at all. I was just trying to make it look consistent with the rest of them. I didn't get it quite dark enough at the top. Where it all comes down to is this right here. Does it hold the paint because I'm just taking whether or not you put a tube of paint down or a little ounce of paint, it doesn't matter because you're taking it all away. So just how much ends up in the trash can is the question. Let's look and see how well it holds it actually holds the paint itself. I don't know why I'm being picky here about the shape of my cloud. It really is truly irrelevant. But anyway, you at least get to see how the paint sticks. So there you have it. Overall, not a bad result at all. Yeah, not bad. Not a thing wrong with that. The next one is Fredrix Red Label. I believe this is one of the more high-end canvases. You can see the construction of it here, and it does have the little spacers there under the label. And so, of course, I put the spacers in. I remember it being fairly tight even before I did that, but you can see it here. Just a fun fact, I did paint on Fredrix canvases intermittently when I first started to paint, when I first started to paint seriously. I'd use them every once in a while as an option. It wasn't what I always used. Here comes the exciting part. I'll wipe the canvas and see how that works. It's important to either, get a fresh shop towel or else flip it over constantly. Otherwise you start to paint with it. Give it a light blend. Just knock the brush strokes out. Overall, it's a very solid canvas. I don't see any issues with it, but I'd like to hear what you think, how it's stacked up with the rest of them. This one is a fine touch canvas. And that is a 2-pack as well. Here you can see the back with the stretcher bar going down the middle. And you can see the tension on the canvas there. Here you can see just how much of that pigment is staying and how much is being removed by the shop towel wiping process. Again, I'm leaving behind the same amount, of paint. If it looks like, oh, it's so dark, and it's because the canvas is rejecting. The canvas isn't holding on to it. This was, for the style of painting that I do, this is not the result I want to see when I'm doing that. Having said that, the stretcher bar does not seem to be too much of a problem, which is always a good thing. And we'll give this cloud a final blend. You can see that you are able to get a nice cloud on there, on that canvas, even though the gesso clearly, or else the gesso and the texture, clearly didn't hold the paint as much as some of the others. Hopefully you learned something from this. If you have any suggestions for future videos that could be like this, kind of just fun stuff to sprinkle in along with the paintings, then definitely let me know. I'll see you in the next painting video. Thanks for watching.